This episode is brought to you by Adorama. Be sure to check out Adorama.com for all your imaging, tech, and video needs. They've got a huge selection of gear at great prices. Hi, this is Rich Harrington for Adorama TV, and today I am talking about the Sony NEX-6 camera. Now, on an earlier episode, we reviewed the NEX-7, and I like that camera a lot. This is actually a slightly more affordable version of that camera. It's a little bit stepped down, but not in any major way, and it is a great way to get into a small, compact camera. Now, the one I reviewed is the one that ships the kit with the 16 to 50 millimeter lens, and this does have a mag factor of about 1.5 on the crop, so that lens gives pretty good coverage. And what we're seeing here is that lens will fall between f3.5 through 5.6, and that's just going to sort of depend on how much you're zoomed in, where it's going to perform. Now, the camera body itself without the lens, very lightweight. It's about 12.2 ounces, which is good given that it's got metal body, very, very strong here. And I found it to be a very sturdy camera that felt good in the hand. I think the grip here is very nice. It fits easily in the hand, very securely, and works well for small shooting. It's also designed to be small enough to fit into a pocket, and I did find that this camera would work in that situation. Now, the lens itself is very reasonable here. It's going to come with the kit, 16 to 50 millimeters, but you can use any other lens that's in Sony's system, which opens up a lot of choices. You actually have several lenses that you can connect to this body, so it's a system that you could build on. Now, one of the things here about this camera, 16 megapixels. So if you're looking for a high-res pocket camera, this is going to do that. Now, 16 megapixels, up to 10 frames per second shooting, that crop factor of 1.5 is going to really punch in on the lens. Now, this is not an optical viewfinder. In fact, it is using a true finder, which is essentially an OLED. Now, this is going to mean that there's a small screen in here, and what you'll notice is that when you have the camera up, you're going to see what's there, but if I were to get close to it, it's going to detect that, and it will switch over to the built-in viewfinder. So it's going to toggle between the two intelligently based on proximity to my face. Now, this does work really well. I found that it was high resolution here, to over 23,000 dots, so plenty of contrast there. You do have a built-in pop-up flash to help you shoot in lower light mode. Now, that's going to be fine. I don't recommend that you use that too often, but you do actually have a shoe here, so they do make other accessories that you can attach. The low light performance was pretty strong. You will see some grain in your images when shooting in low light situations, or you might want to take advantage of a slower shutter and use a tripod. If you need to shoot a lot of low light images, it actually has a 6-image layering mode, which will take 6 images, shoot it in burst mode, and then in camera, merge those together, remove the ISO and some of the noise, combine them to create a higher resolution image that really tops out around ISO 25,600. So this burst mode can be used. This also helps with things like blur. It's got an anti-blur mode to sort of clean up shooting at night. This camera is a reasonable balance here. So if you're shooting a lot of low light, like performances of a loved one, sporting events, school plays, this is really a camera that's designed for a mom or a dad who's looking to get better performance. I really like how accurately the camera rendered some of the details, particularly in areas of like hair and fur and shadows. A lot of the pictures with subtle contrast really had nice details come through, and I think the camera is very attractive for snapshots and simple portraits. One of the areas of the camera that disappointed me was the sweep technology for shooting panoramic photos. I really like panoramics, and usually I stitch them together using a tool like Photoshop, but I was interested in the in-camera processing. However, what I found was that it didn't do a great job when shooting things like sunsets or skies. The banding and the seams were very visible. It did do a better job when shooting more of a clear subject or into an interior, like you see with the aft of the ship here, but overall performance is not as good as taking separate photos and stitching them manually. Now, some of the other things here, I mentioned anti-blur earlier. The use of the anti-motion blur could be helpful, particularly if you're shooting in low light. I thought it worked pretty well, although it can be tough to track moving subjects like children. Now, shutter speed, you can shoot at 4,000th of a second to as slow as really 30 seconds, like bulb mode. This is nice. It gives you the ability, especially when shooting on a tripod, to do the long exposures. And the number of exposures that this can record is very high. You can get up to 15 frames shooting fine quality JPEG, 11 frames in burst mode for shooting RAW, or 10 frames if you're shooting RAW plus JPEG. I also like that it has exposure bracketing in 1/3, 2/3, full stop, 2 stops, 3 compensation. This allows you to do 3-frame bracketing for things like HDR, which is something I enjoy a lot. And the fact that this camera is that flexible really opens up some opportunities. Now, you'll also find that there's good ranges of exposure compensation, plus or minus 3 values. So if you're shooting with a strong backlit subject, but you still want to take advantage of some of the more auto modes of the camera, this will help you compensate for those tough lighting situations. There's also exposure settings for eye auto, superior auto, and of course program, aperture priority, and shutter priority modes, and manual. So this camera gives you a lot of the same controls you're used to having on a DSLR. You'll also find a lot of preset effects useful in the camera. Now, the portrait effects and shooting black and white was very attractive, but some of the spot color effects didn't hold up as well. You don't really have the ability to specify the controls or a tolerance, so it's kind of hit or miss. Now, like I said before, it doesn't go that high with ISO, but it is still very reasonable. You can go as high as 25,600 if you're using the manual controls, and that's a little bit boosted of an ISO, but I still found that easily at 6,400, this worked very well in low light situations. Chances are if you're looking at a camera like this, you also want to be recording video. Good news is here, full 1080p video. You can also do 720. Very easy files to edit with, MP4 codec, so this will work in Premiere, Photoshop, lots of applications, iMovie. You can bring these files in and start to edit right away. And you do have different quality settings. So if you need to do very high quality video, you can actually shoot with some pretty high data rates on these cameras, but you're going to want to use the high speed memory cards for that. Now, the camera itself does have Wi-Fi built in. So you can actually go ahead and have apps that work with this camera. There's some downloadable apps. You could transfer images from the camera, and it does give you some very intuitive DSLR-like type operation with the navigation controls. One of the things I also like is that you don't need a special charger. This just works with USB. So instead of having to find some special charger that you forgot to pack in your suitcase or you misplaced, you can easily just plug this into your computer or your iPad charger and charge it up. So when you're out there shooting on vacation, you're not going to get blown out of the water for running out of batteries. All right, for Adorama TV, my name is Rich Harrington. I recommend you check the camera out if you're looking for an affordable entry point into a nice compact camera that does pack in the features. The Sony NEX-6 is definitely a camera that you're going to want to consider.
Adorama TV is brought to you by Adorama, your best source for the equipment and knowledge you need. For all the latest photography, video, and computer gear, visit Adorama.com. Place your order by 7 p.m. and it ships the same day. Plus, the next time you're in New York City, be sure to visit our store located on 18th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. Check out the Adorama Rental Company for professional cameras, lighting, computers, and more. We'll help you make the best selection to match your needs while giving you the knowledge to achieve the best outcome from your rental. Adorama is your complete solution for equipment, printing, training, and more. Adorama, more than a camera store.